So just some housekeeping items. This session is being recorded, and all of the presentation materials plus the recording will be made available on the Cando website later this afternoon. That's at edo.ca. Just go to the top menu tab and it'll have links to learning, and then drop down the menu to Webinar Wednesday, and it will be right at the top. So if you think you've missed some information, don't worry. Go to the website and the recording will be there, plus all of the presentation materials. So we're just waiting a couple of more minutes. Throughout the presentation, if you have any questions, please just use the chat function to list the questions. We'll make sure that there's time either during the presentation or certainly at the end of the presentation to answer all of your questions. Hello and welcome to Webinar Wednesday with Cando. This is part of our Links to Learning series of weekly webinars. Today's webinar is with Todd Evans, who is the National Lead Indigenous Exporters with Export Development Canada. Todd will be speaking with us about the steps to becoming a successful exporter. As a reminder, this session is being recorded and will be made available later today at Cando's website, edo.ca/links to learning. In addition, Todd will be sharing his presentation materials with me, and I'll post that up to the website as well. So without any more delay, Todd, take it away, please.
Great. Well, thanks very much, Paul, and thanks to Cando and all the staff for the opportunity to present this material today. And so, yeah, definitely grateful for that. So, bonjour, hello, everyone. I first would like to give thanks for the opportunity to live and work on the unceded territory and homeland of the Algonquian Anishinaabe Nation. And I also want to send my prayers and thoughts to the families and communities of those 215 children that have been found in the Kamloops Indian Residential School. And I think we just need to take a moment and really think about those children, all the other survivors and their families, and the many, many, many thousands of children we know that have yet to be found. So I think we just need to just keep all of that in our minds, and and put everything else into perspective. So today's presentation, as Paul mentioned, is really around kind of just giving some high-level kind of step-by-step guidelines, sort of a guidelines, a roadmap on some of the sort of the process and steps to help you become a successful exporter. So first, for people who don't know, I'll just give a little bit of overview around EDC, who we are, what we do, talk a little bit about some of the benefits of exporting, and then really get into the sort of the meat of the presentation. And I provided a lot of additional resources as well with all the links, and those will be provided, as Paul mentioned, where you can find additional information as well as contact details as well. And like I always tell people, at the end of the day, if you have questions, you can contact me directly. If you're at a point now where you're actually thinking of going after that export contract, we can introduce you to local account managers who can work with you and look at all of your options and available resources that you can obtain through EDC. So we support Indigenous and Canadian companies of all sizes, all industries, all sectors. I often get asked by many people, some of my colleagues and others outside, and sort of other departments, what sectors are Indigenous companies involved in? Well, all of them, right? It's quite simple when it comes to that. So in terms of what we support kind of those traditional exports, sort of, as I like to say, things that you can drop on your foot, but also a lot of we're seeing a lot more exports now in services. People are exporting their knowledge, their technology. We can support all of that. And also we can work with and provide all of our financial and knowledge solutions to companies that work further back in those export supply chains. So you could be providing goods and services to a large exporter, and you can take advantage of some of the solutions that we have as well. And until the end of this year, up till the end of 2021, we can also support companies that are non-exporters or support your domestic business. And that's part of our response to sort of the COVID pandemic. And regardless of your knowledge or your experience, or if you haven't started exporting, if you're just thinking about it, or if you've already been exporting and looking to take that next step, we can work with you and help you find the solutions to help you sort of move to that next level of your growth. One thing I should note as well is that really EDC never does anything on its own. We have a partnership approach to pretty much everything that we offer, and we're kind of sort of adding capacity, adding our capability to the market. So really complementing what's out there already and not coming in and trying to reinvent the wheel. We can do a little bit of that, original, come out with original solutions and whatnot. But we'll work with our other partners as well, and that could be other government departments, whether it's the Trade Commissioner Service with BDC or FCC, the other financial crowns. And as you know, EDC is a financial crown as well, fully self-sufficient. We raise our own capital, actually pay dividends back to Canada. So that's kind of gives us that little bit of independence. A big part of sort of our relationship that I've been working on in the past year and a half is kind of taking our trade ecosystem and really sort of expanding that now, so that we're working with a number of national Indigenous associations, business associations, the CCAB, of course, Cando, NACA, and Powwow, Pitch, ITAC, and ITO, and increasingly we're working with quite a few directly with Indigenous companies, and we now have the capacity to start recording and tracking the companies we're working with. And just to give you a quick stat, in 2020 we provided solutions to 77 Indigenous companies and provided $120 million in different forms of financial support. And of course, the financial institutions play an important role here, and we work with banks, credit unions, other sort of investors, equity investors, that kind of thing. And also we've developed a good relationship with First Nations Bank, and we're recently signed an agreement with Peace Hills Trust to offer some of our products as well. So very quickly, what does EDC do? Basically, it's about increasing access to capital and reducing risk for your business. I won't go into too much detail here. I'll refer you back to the two presentations we did back in February 3rd for the webinar Wednesday. And I think there was two others for the regional links to learning on February 9th and February 11th. And I believe those are still posted and available on the Cando website. And in those presentations, I went into a lot of our different financial products, how they work, with some many case studies and whatnot. But really, there's four areas that we work through. One is providing sort of knowledge and know-how and all of our expertise, and providing that to companies like yourselves, and how to find market opportunities, build an export plan, what are some strategies to reduce risk, what's involved with around sort of the trade logistics, and more recently things like we're providing webinars and guidance on e-commerce and working through partners like Shopify and Google and others. And of course, insurance. I'm going to talk a little bit about that one later today because it's a little more relevant for what we're talking about here. But that's really about insuring your business, insuring your sales against non-payment, against loss, kind of just how you can help manage and reduce risk for your business. And of course, financing, that's a big part of what we do as well. Loan guarantees. We work with your bank and other financial institutions so you can get access to working capital, lines of credit. So banks can boost your operating lines. And we also provide direct lending. And again, that's often in tandem with another financial institution. And finally, the connections. It's about bringing all companies, including Indigenous companies, into our network, introducing them into supply chains, introducing to foreign buyers, perhaps introducing them to a financial institution. So really kind of just making our ecosystem available to Indigenous companies as well. So very quickly, why export? Why is it important for your business? I'm not going to go through. I'm just cognizant of the time here, but I just provide a few stats here. But one thing I would like to point out here is that the Indigenous business economy, business community is large and getting larger. We know we're well north of 30 billion now. That's an older stat, and we're helping, hoping that we can contribute to growing that to the $100 billion mark in a few years. And I know Caroline Hilton and Indigenomics have been doing some great work around that. But one thing that point out here too is that more than half of the Indigenous entrepreneurs and companies that we see out there are in sectors that are highly with high export potential, and I've just listed a few of those here. And there's great opportunities to tap into those global markets. So one thing that I like to remind people as well is that we're just not about supporting large companies. We support companies of all sizes, anywhere from 1 or 2 employees right up to the large multinationals. And in fact, if you look at our clientele database, it's north of 90% of our customers are small companies, right? So it's a big part of our market, and I think that's conducive to kind of bring that support into the Indigenous business community. So why export? I could say why not, but really why export? It does give your business access to that much larger, much more dynamic market. Canada is less than 2% of the global marketplace, so the opportunities outside of Canada are quite significant. It can also create a much more sustainable and resilient business. That diversification beyond Canada, you can get that sustainability, that resiliency, and it just creates more opportunities for your own company and for your community. And just a few stats in there as well. We know that if you look at some of the key performance metrics around revenues, around profitability, around wages and employment, you inevitably always see exporters perform much better on those metrics. So when you do start going taking that step into international markets, export markets, it's important to remember that there are some key differences that you will often see in international markets, and we just laid out a few of them here, some high levels, just to get people kind of thinking that okay, I've got to look at this business a little bit different. I've got to maybe look at how I can reduce risk here, and just really structure your business plan, your export plan, and to be cognizant and to make allowances for sort of some of the standard practices we see out there. And I guess one of them is, we typically see longer payment periods as in international business, export business, as opposed to domestic business. So that means, if you're used to getting paid immediately or within 30, 60 days for your domestic business, that can be longer in international markets. So you need to sort of account for that. The contract structures can be different. They can be quite different. Then there's foreign exchange risk, right? You know, the fluctuation in the Canadian dollar up and down, that can have an impact. And again, we have a specific product actually designed to reduce those risks. You know, you can find that information and some of the resources I provide later. Of course, access to capital, access to working capital is so critical. You know, for if you're a smaller company, or even if you're you know, just a small company selling online, selling through Shopify or Etsy, or setting up your own website. I mean, access to capital is important. Even if it's, you know, buying supplies, buying just, you know, all the requirements to meet a new contract, you need to invest in you know, buying inputs. You might need to invest in some new equipment or anything, whatever it takes to meet that contract. And so access to capital is very important. And that's always consideration, right? Do you have enough capital? Do you have enough access to funds to meet those contracts? And then finally, the relationship with buyers. We know relationships are always important, whether that's for domestic or international business. But given some of the sort of little more complexities and sort of challenges of working with international partners, and probably even more so now, and with you know, some of the restrictions around COVID, it's important to really kind of nurture those relationships. So again, just to kind of give you a overview of some of the issues you need to keep in mind, and hopefully with the steps that I lay out, it'll give you some. It'll address how to sort of be aware of these differences. So what I've done here is I've laid out sort of what we think 10 steps to becoming a successful exporter. It doesn't have to be 10. It's just 10 is just a nice round number. You know, kind of keeps it in your mind. But you know, just to start off, I think the first thing that you know, that I typically tell people, or sort of the advice we give. So, you know, okay, you're thinking about going into export market or increasing your export sales, or just, you know, making that leap into making exports a more significant part of your business. So, you know, first of all, just kind of step back. Is it right for your business right now? Does it fit in with your overall strategy and your overall business plan? You know, so if you do decide to go down that route, you know, start just having a look at your capacity, your capabilities. Do you have the, you know, the sort of the knowledge in place? Do you have the people in place? Do you have the skills in place? That kind of thing. Just really just kind of doing that quick initial assessment. And once you get beyond that point, really it then becomes about developing that plan, that export strategy. And as I mentioned earlier, the presentations I did back in February, we did 3 presentations, but two different presentations. One was given twice. I can't remember. One of them includes a more detailed overview of developing that export plan, that strategy. So I would definitely refer you back to that. Again, it's just all about being prepared, kind of knowing the lay of the land, going in with your eyes wide open, and have a really good plan that you can follow through. And an important part of that as well is the financial plan. You know, do what additional expenses will you have? What's going to be required? Do you need to invest in, as I was just mentioning, new equipment and this? So really having that financial plan is important as well. Making sure you've got the capacity to meet the export sales. Do you need to upscale? Do you need to sort of grow your business to meet those new contracts? All of that will be just, you know, things you want to put in your plan. Other considerations as well. Are you going to have to, if you're selling, let's say, some kind of consumer products, health products or clothing, or any you know, processed foods, those kinds of things, where you need to invest in new packaging, all those kinds of things that can kind of be in your plan. And then next, it comes down, you know, really starting your research and then selecting your your target markets. This is, you know, the point where you're actually you know, trying to decide which market you're going to move into. You're trying to find those opportunities, right? Do you have your product or service that appeals to the local markets? You know, it's all about understanding the culture and the country that you're exporting to. You know, I just put in there as an example, sort of the anti-corruption and corporate social responsibility. There's rules and regulations around that. So that's, you know, that's one of the things that you'll need to keep in mind amongst others. So really, once you're going through all of this research and trying to determine which markets you're going to focus on, that will really kind of gives you the sort of the groundwork and the foundation to start moving on into like steps 4 and 5 as well. And I can say, you know, right now that there is a tremendous demand outside of Canada for Indigenous branded goods from Canada, whether that's in the United States, through Europe, Germany, France, UK. There's great opportunities there, and we've already been introducing a number of Indigenous companies into those markets, and that's, you know, part of our plan is to keep doing that, more of that, and also in China as well. It's a big market for many different kinds of products as well. For example, if you look at the sort of the health products on the consumer goods side, health products, beauty products, all that whole range of different things that all go into that. That accounts for over half of all consumer goods that we export to China. You go back about a decade, it was about $10 million a year. And the latest stat I've seen on exports of all of those goods to China, that's just to China. Of course, I shouldn't say just to China, it is a large market. I believe it's now up to about 240 million a year. So you just see phenomenal growth. And, you know, so that's the kind of things that we can help you get into those markets, introduce you to people on the ground there as well. Next thing you want to do is really start looking at your distribution methods. And here I've got 4 and 5, but you know, it doesn't have to be linear. This can be done in tandem, right? You know, kind of thing. I've just put it in this kind of linear fashion here just to make it easier to illustrate. But you know, some of these can be done in tandem. You can maybe do parts of one before parts of another. Again, it's just to kind of you know, keep it in nice clean steps. But really, you start looking at, you know, selling directly. And again, depending on the size of your business, you could be doing that sales online through some kind of online platform. That could be, you know, I know Shopify has been investing a lot into working with Indigenous companies, and we have a partnership with Shopify as well. And again, you know, we can, it's, you know, it's one of those partners that we can introduce you to as well. Also, we've done work with Google on. We recently did an e-commerce webinar with Google and some of our other partners. So again, all of that information is available. So you know, that's one way of selling directly, and it doesn't have to be online as well, right? I mean, selling directly could be you know, doing all your packaging and through your own website and you know, managing all your own shipping and that kind of thing. Are you going to use a distributor? So you're selling your goods, you know, you're just, through a distributor who does a lot of that work for you, where you have a sales agent. Some companies will create a joint venture. And again, it often depends on where you are in your stage of development and how much you're selling as well. If you get to the point, you know, where you start, you know, really seeing that growth and the sales really start coming in, that's when you got to start thinking about, okay, we need to find someone we can partner with. Also, you know, within this, and I'll talk about some of these issues a little bit later, it's very important to be clear on who has the responsibility for in any of these methods of selling to, you know, who has responsibility for delivery, the customs forms, who's responsible for paying any duties and taxes if there are any. Just things to consider. Then finally, on this one is big marketing your product and your service. You know, things that you can do here, it's attend trade shows and trade fairs. Of course, they're going to be virtual these days, but there's still a lot of trade shows happening in a virtual format. And we've already been introducing, I know we've introduced a few smaller Indigenous companies to our partners in Trade Commissioner Service to attend some of those trade shows. We've been working with CCAB on some of the smaller trade missions they have, including the upcoming one with Australia. It's all about kind of making contacts and building your network. And when you go to marketing as well, other things you need to consider is sort of labeling your product, right? What are the requirements around that? So what might work in Germany? You know what, we're going to have a different design, different pictures if we're going to be selling to Australia, for example. So that's something that's important to consider. Does the imaging, the packaging appeal to the new market? We're going to need translation of the labeling. Also suggests people, if you haven't done so already, the Indigenous business certification can be really helpful. Either through CCAB or CAMC. That's a great kind of sort of option to have when you're trying to sort of sell your business as an Indigenous brand kind of thing. And then, of course, keep in mind any marketing expenses that comes through that. And I will point out that and I've got the link in a later slide with the information on that the CAN export program is pretty good. That's run through the Trade Commissioner Service, and they provide grants up to $75,000 to companies to help them with their marketing efforts. In the past, in the before times, as we like to say, pre-COVID, that funding would help people actually physically go to trade shows and fairs and go out and meet potential new customers. But now it's gone virtual, obviously. So there's funding available to support your designing a new website, online marketing, a whole range of different issues, and it's all laid out on their website. So once you've landed that contract, there's a few other things that keep in mind here as well. And it's, it's very, very important to understand and review all the required paperwork. It's like any commercial business, whether you're selling domestically or setting up your business, there's always paperwork, right? It's unavoidable. With international trade, you've got those extra steps in there, so there's more documents required. For example, you may need an export permit. There's documents around kind of international payments, which I'll talk a little bit about that later. But it's really just understanding the paperwork and what's involved there. And there's resources to help with that. There's also agencies that can help with that. And I neglected to mention on the number 5 on the previous slide under the marketing that we are having a webinar on July 8th. And it's targeted, focused primarily on Indigenous companies. So we have 3 panelists coming in on that. And the first one is an Indigenous trade lawyer. And she's going to be talking a lot about this step number 6 here. What are all the requirements, the paper requirements? Do you need to register your trademarks, those kinds of things? What kind of custom forms are required? Kind of all of those logistics. And then we've got an Indigenous-owned marketing and communications firm, and they're going to talk about sort of how you can sort of leverage your brand, building that brand, taking it international. And then finally, we've got I can't spill the beans yet, but we've got a well-known Indigenous brand that's going to be telling their story and their experience and how they went through all of that. So we're definitely, and we'll be sharing that with Cando and Paul as well in advance of that, so that you can register for that. So again, there's a lot of support and information around that, and also I would add too that be cognizant of the free trade agreements that we have, because those free trade agreements, although the Indigenous chapters in them are, I'll be frank, are quite limited in what they can do. Nevertheless, it still gives Canadian companies, preferential access to those markets. So, the trade agreement with the United States, with the European Union, the new one with the UK, which is really, I think that it's, I forget the exact title of that one, but it's all about continuing the same terms we had with the EU and just kind of replicating those with the UK. So really, those free trade agreements can be beneficial as well. Then it comes to kind of getting paid and getting insured. So I would definitely, there's something called INCO terms. And what that is it's not legally binding or mandatory, but what it is it's an agreed to set of rules and principles that companies, when they're doing international trade with each other, it just kind of lays out the groundwork, sets out the terms, and it makes it, it avoids disputes. It really just kind of lays out your contract in detail and gives you that kind of assurance, right? That both sides know the terms, and I've got some later information on that where you can link to that. We provided some additional resources around that. It's really, getting paid. It's really ensuring your customers can pay, doing due diligence, and all those credit checks are very important. And we have resources and databases that can help with that. It's very important to maintain records and copies of all the correspondence. It's all about just really good documentation. And of course, like anything, consider getting your sales, insuring your sales against loss. And I got in a slide or two, I'll talk about that. Then finally, then it's coming to delivering the goods. This is where you start finalizing transportation and your logistics providers. And many of those providers actually offer end-to-end service, whether it's a UPS, FedEx, Canada Post, or Purelator, or some of the other international ones. And we have agreements. We work with a number of those logistics providers. So again, another great resource to help you with getting your product to the customer. And in fact, UPS actually offers shipping discounts for CCAB members, so certified members within CCAB actually get a discount through UPS. So that's something that might be worth looking into. And again, these agencies can also help with sort of the shipping and packaging requirements, helping you understand and navigate all the duties and customs clearance. So there's definitely a help for that. And then I think it's also important, this is whether it's domestic or international, and just having that after sales and then customer follow up, staying in touch with your customers, just having that connection with them, following up, how are things going, did the product meet your needs, what can be changed, those kinds of things, right? And just in general, looking for ways to improve that customer experience. And then finally, something we often recommend for new exporters, regardless of their size, if is just consider doing a trial run rather than going out and again, depends on your level of comfort, but with the smaller sales and with the trial run, it gives you a chance to kind of sort of build the knowledge and the expertise and gain that experience when it comes to sort of navigating the rules of exporting, and it helps you build up that confidence as well to start bidding on those larger contracts. And of course, starting off with not overextending yourself, but starting off with manageable contracts, it helps to build up your reputation, your credibility, helps you build your brand as well. So that's something we often suggest to companies. Really, just kind of do that. You can call it a trial run, or just that initial sort of smaller approach. Oh yes, and one thing I should mention as well that you'll have to keep in mind, once you start landing those contracts or you win that contract, again, this could be for any size of a company. Are you going to need financing to support those sales and contracts, or something else to keep in mind? And I'll refer you back to one of the earlier presentations we did. But I can say if you get to that point where you're winning the contract and you're like, oh, jumping now, I need money, funding, whatever, to meet these contracts. That's where you can reach out to EDC, you can reach out to me, and I'll introduce you to one of our local account managers, and then they can walk you through that process. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here because I did cover that back in the February. But again, it's having that export plan. It's important. It's your roadmap, to give you that guidance along the way. It's very important because for the reasons I've outlined here, it really allows you to determine if you are ready for that expansion. It gives you kind of the guidance and insights and what to do when you're looking to enter new markets. It's also having that kind of a plan. And I would say that export plan also includes financial plan, which is very important. And that gives you kind of the tool and knowledge to start having discussions with your partners, all the partners along that chain that are going to work with you. And I think, just probably one of the more important there is if you're needing financing or credit to support that plan, to support those export contracts, having that good solid export plan, financial plan behind you gives those, particularly the banks, whether it's a mainstream bank, whether it's a credit union, whether it's an Aboriginal financial institution, part of the NACA network, or one of the regional development agencies like an ACOA or Western Diversification, FedNor, all those different agencies. Having that, seeing that you have thought this through, having that solid business plan gives them the confidence as well. Just looking at the time here, I'm just going to go through a couple more slides, and then after that, it's really just a lot of information around resources. So this looks like a really busy slide, and that's because it is. But this one is around getting paid. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but I just want to give people a sense that there are different forms of establishing contracts and payment systems. Once you start going international and start working with buyers, customers in other countries, certainly the most simple and the least risk to you, and everybody likes this one, just getting cash in advance, right? So here. I'll provide the product once you pay me. And for a lot of e-commerce, it operates that way, right? If you're selling through platforms like Shopify or Etsy, the foreign buyer customer does a transfer, could be an e-transfer, could be a PayPal or anything like that. You receive payment, you send the goods. And again, it's even larger sales, you might see some of that. Then you start getting into more if you start getting into expanding your business, getting into more sales, more customers, bigger contracts, you start getting into things like open account terms, right? And a lot of international trade is done this way through these, certainly through 2 and 3. So you agree to ship your goods and invoice your customers before they even pay you. And the customer, the contract will stipulate that the customer is going to pay you before, before a specified deadline, and that's in the contract. And that's usually within 30 to 180 days of receiving the shipment. So again, going back to that point I made earlier, sometimes the payment periods can be longer. So what's the risk here? The risk is that of an open account is non-payment, since customer will get possession of your goods before paying for them. So again, that's where the due diligence, doing those credit checks come in, are very important. And I'm going to point out a resource in particular that we offer to our customers to use for that. Then there's the letters of credit. Each one tends to get a little more complex, but again, they all have their uses. They all have benefits, and there's pros and cons with each of these approaches. So the letter of credit provides security both you and your buyers, because they're using their banks to receive and verify all the trade documents and the guarantee payment. So it's a little more complex, a little more onerous, but there is that added layer of security around that that comes with the letters of credit. And then there's documentary collections, maybe not quite as common as open account or letters of credit, but basically what you're doing here is you're selling the shipping documents. The customer pays you in exchange for all those shipping documents. And they do that because they need all those documents and that paperwork so that they can go to their local customs officials and to take possession of the goods. If they don't have those documents, they can't take possession of the goods. So they first have to pay you before, to take possession of the documents. I mean, it's almost like getting paid in advance, but here again, one of the advantages is that in most cases, the paperwork here will be handled by your bank and the buyer's bank. And again, you know, EDC has experience with this. We have experience with our bank partners. And when I say bank partners, we also have our international bank partners. So I've included a link here that goes into a little more information here around different payment terms. It's an article on our website, and it goes into a lot more detail where you can get more information on that. I also wanted to spend a couple minutes again on the credit insurance. So again, that's one of the things. If you go back, you know, one of the risks of non-payment, right? You don't get paid from your customer. So we have a credit insurance program, accounts receivable insurance, and how that works, it will cover 90% against non-payment. So if you've let's say you've done open account terms or some other, you're waiting for sort of that longer waiting period, and your company or the buyer, something happens, they go bankrupt, or any number of things can happen. And that's, you know, we see that in domestic business, export business, companies go out of business, other things happen that they're not able to pay or not able to pay on time. And that could be, you know, for a small company, that could be, depending on the size of that contract, that could be detrimental to the business, right? So really what our insurance product does here in those cases where you've made that foreign sale, and for some reason, the buyer, the foreign customer is not able to pay, well, we'll step in and cover 90% of that loss, that potential loss. So it really, you know, gives you that sleep at night comfort that, right, no matter what happens, you know, my worst case scenario is that I lose 10% of the value of the sales, much better than 100%. You know, so our credit insurance program is very, very flexible. Some companies use it to cover all of their sales. They'll buy like an overarching policy that covers all the business they're going to do for the coming year, all customers, all markets. Some other companies will come in and, well, you know what, there's only 2 or 3 clients that I'm a little bit worried about. So I'm just going to buy insurance for them, or I'm just worried about this market and not that market. So I'm going to buy insurance for that market. And it could be from, you know, sales as low as a few $1,000s right up to, you know, the multi-million-dollar contracts. And knowing you have that sort of insurance behind you that you know, you're going to get paid somehow, right? Even if the customer doesn't pay you, your sales are still covered against loss. So that gives you the comfort then of entering into maybe an open one of those open contract terms or something where there's a longer payment period, and you know, and that's also beneficial for you and your customer, because then you can offer them sort of more competitive, better payment terms, knowing that, okay, you know, behind you that even if things do go wrong here, that you know, you're insured for it. And then for COVID-19 until the end of the year, we've made a few streamlined it a little bit and just made it a little more easier on companies, you know, to respond to any special circumstances that might come up around COVID. It's really just a sort of streamlined and relaxing some of the sort of the normal requirements around that. And again, the link to all that information is right down there. And finally, some of you may have seen this before, but really what I'm showing here is that, you know, for every step along the way, we have sort of people and knowledge and resources, whether that's through directly within EDC or with some of our partners that can provide you with information and connections and the resources that you can use. A few things here I want to point out. For those interested in learning more about international trade, we have a partnership with FIT. So FIT is the Forum for International Trade Training, and they have a whole series of sort of export knowledge modules some are, you can even go and do a 6-month course and get a certification, all the way down to sort of little mini modules, I think 30 minutes, an hour long kind of thing on specific issues that you want to learn about. And as always, the EDC Export Help Hub is a place you can go to. And the next two, as I referred to earlier, EDC Enlist. So that's where we've identified a number of different service providers, providers that can facilitate and support all the things you need around international trade, around logistics, shipping, those customs brokers. And so they've been vetted by EDC, and they're companies that we've worked with for a long time. And then there's a company insight, so that's referring back to step 7. So that's around doing that due diligence, those credit checks on a foreign buyer. You can go in and start doing that little bit of sort of background checking on them. Is this a legitimate company, first of all? Are there any red flags on them? What's their payment history? Those kinds of things. So that's a great resource. And even some people within EDC use a lot of our account managers and frontline sort of financial folks will use that as well. And then there's all of the connection programs I was talking about earlier. Very quickly, I've added some additional information here. The first one on the INCO terms. There's sort of the FAQ around that. Again, a good resource to learn more about that. And again, just it may seem like a lot of information here, but I just wanted to give people more options. And the thing with INCO is not to look at this as some kind of onerous sort of way of doing things. It's really about protecting your business and making your contracts clear and concise. Both sides understand what's expected of them, who's responsible for what, just having that clarity up front. And then there's a whole, and I put a couple of things in there that I thought would be very useful. One was a recent webinar we did on mastering international contracts. So that might be useful. And then some other additional information you can tap into. And then down below, sort of other government departments, the Trade Commissioner Service, their Can Export Program we talked about earlier. So that's the link to that. Agri-Food and Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada as a pretty good site for that. There's one here in particular that I really like and I use myself and recommend to people as well. It's a Canadian Border Services Agency has a really good information on sort of the guide to exporting commercial goods. It's really all goods from Canada. And with that, they have a checklist, kind of a step-by-step checklist you have to go through, and they'll identify, okay, you need to fill out this form. There's a Canada Revenue Agency form that needs to be completed. Things like that, which really makes the whole process a lot simpler. And yeah, I'm just looking at what else is on here. So some additional resources, again, ones that I really like and often refer to. One is the Team Canada step-by-step guide to exporting, and that's the link there. And that's really kind of a good advice and good resources there. Trade Commissioner did a similar one. It's a little bit different. Then the International Trade of Commerce, again, did one of their 10 steps to successful exporting. And again, a lot of these are similar regardless of which country that you come from, which is why I put in this one from the UK, because they do a really good job on their trade promotion and really nice, concise reports. And I thought that would be useful if people want to look at that as well. And then there's a link to our own information. I would encourage people to register for a My EDC account. It's free to register, and really it gives you access to all of our different resources we have, unrestricted access to all the webinars, research reports. You also can post your own questions to our trade advisors as well with that. And we also, I should point out, we just recently launched our new Indigenous business webpage. So it's a new page. We're still building to it, adding to it, looking for feedback from anyone. So I would encourage if anyone has any feedback on that page, if they do visit it, and if you do want to provide any feedback, by all means, you can reach out to me at the email you see there. So I know it seems like a lot when it comes to going out and getting an export, winning the export and moving into the export business, but remember that the rewards can be well worth it, and it's not as onerous as I laid out here. I just want to give everybody a perspective of some of the issues and some of the sort of processes involved, and remember too that there are a lot of partners out there willing to work with you and provide that support. And as Paul said at our last set of presentations, you're not alone. Along the whole process, there's places you can turn to help you with any of that information or questions you might have. So I will end it there, and we still have a few minutes for any questions or comments, and happy to take those.
Yeah, Todd, Tina was just posting in the chat. If you can queue up your email address on the slide you had before, if you can go to that slide so she can get that. Yeah, there you go.
Evans@edc.ca. It's pretty easy. It's
are there any questions for Todd? We'll just, if you have a question, we can just unmute your microphone and go ahead and ask Todd. We've got about 7-8 minutes left.
Well, that's great. Like I say, the presentation will be posted online, and I think this recording will be posted online as well with my email address there and the other contacts. Or if anyone does have any questions or any follow-up comments, by all means, don't hesitate to reach out to any of these numbers or emails. So I would say reaching out to me directly, the response is likely to be a little quicker than some of the other ones, because the other ones there's just so many coming through all the time. But I mean, they're great at responding to them. There's a lot of traffic these days, a lot more knowledge, a lot more for people requesting information, wanting to learn more about exporting, and particularly now as we're we can kind of see a light at the end of the tunnel, right, on the pandemic. Hopefully, things will start opening up, and then we'll start to see some of that economic rebound and some of those opportunities starting to come forth again.
Yeah, for those that were in this session, I mean, you have a point of contact at EDC now with Todd, and there are regional offices of EDC right across the country. So Todd can point you to the regional contacts that have specific experience with your region and the the trade issues and the or more importantly the trade experience with some of the companies and some of the communities that are starting the trading process in your region. So the point is that you know who to contact when you're ready to start on this journey. And as Todd said, registering is a great first step. Get that out of the way, and open up the window of opportunity for exporting to diversify your revenue stream, to grow your market, and so on. So thank you, Todd. As always, fantastic presentation, your wealth of knowledge. And again, this recording plus the presentation will be available at edo.ca. Go to the links to learning tab at the top and go down to Webinar Wednesday. So we'll just give you 6 minutes back of your day. We thank you for sharing part of your day with us. We know there's lots of demands on your time, and we thank you for sharing it with us. Thank you, Todd, once again. All the rest, enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.
Thank you.
And we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Miigwech. Well, all of you.